So thank you, Betty, for your introduction. In summary, I'm old, okay, so I've been around. I'm going to think with you about science and regional cooperation, okay? So I've been doing that for many. So first we have to define some words, as our colleague yesterday did. One thing we have to ask ourselves is, why is science so special? Well, it's basically because science is a way of looking at nature that is extremely successful in terms of knowledge creation. And that's why it has subsided for the last centuries. And the other thing which we have to think about is that science deals exclusively with arguments that are not what I think or what you think, but we are based on empirical evidence or on theories about relationships between material objects. I mean, we don't believe in anything but those things. Whatever we propose must be testable and subject to rejection. See, there is nothing like absolute truth for scientists. It has to be testable, and it can be rejected. And we don't worry about that. I mean, we don't start crying when one theory proves to be or wrong or partial or incomplete. All the results of science, all of them, must be subject to independent verification by others. This is important. These things are essential, basically for education. If we can convince the teachers of our kids that the scientific method responds to all of what I've said, the argument of power falls on its face. Because the argument of power many times doesn't recognize that whatever I say must be testable, that whatever I say can be rejected, whatever I say has to be subject to independent verification. So if the kids understand that, perhaps democracy may survive. The science community, and this has been described yesterday, has always been international in scope and practice. And this is not from yesterday. This has a long, long history. Our basic propositions are totally independent of culture and geography. And it's obvious. I mean, I said this yesterday. The theorems of mathematics, the principles of physics, and the details of molecular biology are exactly the same all over the world. They don't depend on color, they don't depend on religion, they don't depend on whether you live near the sea or the mountain or whatever. It's the same. And science communities have very long worked to develop specialized languages to describe concepts that provide gateways to understanding between cultures and nations. Having said that, what do we face? What are the problems that we face? You can read faster than I can describe. But this is obvious. We have problems with climate change. We will have enormous problems with water supply. We have to go through a global energy transition. We have to produce food for a number of billion peoples that are going to be born in the next 10 years. We are facing emerging diseases because of climate change. We are faced with land degradation. We must face the problem of species preservation, and perhaps most important, we have to think about equity and quality of life. Now, these challenges are global and do not respect national boundaries. If you think about diseases, Ebola was mentioned yesterday. You can't say, I'm here, I'm protected by mountains, so it won't arrive. Now, we need structures. Without structures, we're faced with questions that are extremely important, or perhaps more important today than they were yesterday, is what is the general opinion of science in any problem, as opposed to a good friend of mine, a scientist, said that climate change does not exist. How do we negotiate those things? The individual position and the opinion of science. One way to do it is to understand that academies of science in any country are typically independent organizations that commit the role of advancing science and evidence in policy making by having the voice of science and not the individual voice of scientists that may be extremely different. By definition, they are merit-based, and as such, they're viewed at home and abroad as places where excellence across disciplines is represented. Of course, many people think that academies of science are honorific societies where very old people sit and drink tea at 5. But however, that's not true. Academies are vital for civil society because they have credibility to inform public and policymakers about problems and potential solutions. And the credibility doesn't come only from the scientific excellence of the components, but also because academies have the freedom from vested political and commercial interests. And this is absolutely crucial these days. Now, just as each academy has the potential to represent an authoritative voice nationally, I have what? Oh, no. No? Good. The unified voice of academies coming together, can have a great impact at the international level, and this is diplomacy. One example, I'm going to give 3 examples, okay? One example is IAP. It is the global network of science, engineering, and medical academies coming together to provide independent and expert advice on scientific, technological, and health issues. IAP provides a platform that allows its member academies to work together across national borders and to contribute to global policy debates, always in contact with good diplomacies, because diplomacies can be excellent or not. One of the academies of that type was founded in 2004 in this continent. And this is the Inter-American Network of Academies of Science. What is Yanis? It's a regional network of academies of science that was created to support cooperation toward strengthening science and technology and as a tool to advance research and development, prosperity, and equity in the Americas. So it's a regional system of academies of science. The mission is to strengthen science communities in the hemisphere and to provide independent source of policy advice to governments on key scientific issues. And the vision, and I wrote that about many years ago, the vision is to make academies stronger and to use the academies and the academies together to ensure sustainable development in the continent. And all this you can find on the webpage, so I'm not going to delve on it. And what does Yanis do? I have 5 minutes. Good. We assist in building new academies. We assist in to build capacity of the academies, because one thing is having an academy and the other thing completely different is the academy to have capacity to do what the academies should do. To aid the creation of new academies and of course to influence the scientific decision-making processes. Just to give you an example, all these academies are part of Yanis, and those highlighted by an arrow are new academies that emerged in this continent because of the existence of Yanis. When you look at an organization like this, and there are hundreds of organizations of this kind in the world, all of them competing for funds, you ask yourself, what do they do apart of having meetings in different places? Well, this system does things. We have programs that face problems that are continental in water, women for science, energy, education, food security, capacity building. And just to give you one example, this is the first time that we have a complete knowledge of what is the water scene in the Americas. And not only that, and I'm referring to yesterday's talk, national interests, not only that, but if you take a look in a deeper sense, we have looked at the city water problem in each of the countries of the Americas. And I have 2 minutes now. So this is the summary. I will leave this presentation so you can read it at home. But I'm going to finish with what in practice does the state of Sao Paulo with its research foundation do to do science diplomacy. This. We have agreements all over the world to do cooperative research. And one thing which is important to anybody, be it a diplomat, a science organization, or what, is not to sign agreements. We never sign an umbrella agreement if it's not raining. So in any of the agreements that I'm showing here, there is a call for proposals, there is an exchange of people, and this is in practice science diplomacy, observing clearly the national interests, that in this case is the interest of the taxpayer of the state of Sao Paulo that funds the foundation and must be absolutely sure that as science in Sao Paulo gets better and has more impact, the life of the taxpayer is going to get better, and in practice it does. End.